The feminine is the seeker of love. It's the seeker of connection and the flow of love. And if something is the seeker of love, how can it be the source of love? Now, intention and action are masculine traits. None of our fathers were as good as we might imagine them to be or as bad as we might imagine them to be. We have to either take them off the pedestal or out of the gutter and just see them as men, wounded men, struggling, working against the odds, without the tools and resources they need. Because until we can do that with our fathers, we're going to judge all other men and ourselves by that same unrealistic standard. I've been teaching what's an integrated man for quite some time. But when we started putting together Integration Nation, and I want to say, well, really, how can we help men focus in? What does it mean to be an integrated man? And I started just writing down just whatever came to mind, just kind of free associating. And about 40 things came up. And I said, well, I'm going to have to condense that somewhat. So I got it condensed down to about 16. And I started a few weeks ago a series of lessons on each of these 16 aspirations. Now, an aspiration is just something that we desire, a direction that we're moving. And each of these directions, each of these aspirations about something fundamental for being an integrated man. Now, the stress always is we don't have to become a different man, a better man. We just have to embrace all aspects of ourselves. We're good men doing better. That's our mantra. Now, a critical aspect of being a good man doing better is our connection with the masculine in general, with our own masculinity. Aspiration number 4 is I aspire to fully embrace my masculinity, my masculine heritage, and connect deeply with other men. Now, this whole thing about connecting with men, that's a core nice guy issue. Connections with our fathers, often not so great. Connections with other men. We don't want to be like those jerks, those assholes, those controlling men we've heard our mothers and women complain about. So most men I come into contact, most nice guys I come into contact with are really disconnected from men in general, from their father, and from their own masculine self. Okay. So as we talk about this, and I tell you what, these lessons have been a challenge to try to limit myself to like 12 to 15 minutes. It's like, it's challenging. I've got a stopwatch going in front of me. But I like to share 3 key points for each of the topics. And that helps me kind of get a good focus and helps you, I think, take away the key points better. So here's the key points of the lesson for today. 1, masculinity is transmitted from men to men. Masculinity is transmitted from men to men. We'll come back and talk about each of these. Number 2, our fathers were destined to let us down. There's no other way it could have happened. Our fathers were destined to let us down. And number 3, the masculine is a source of love. Now, if you've never heard me say that, you're probably scratching your head right now going, what does that even mean? And I have a whole series of lessons on that. So to get that into 1/3 of this lesson, that'll be my challenge, but we'll do our best. Okay, let's talk about masculinity being transmitted. Our ancestors. Now, when I talk about our ancestors, I mean 1.5 million years of men. Our gene pool. Every man that has come before us for about 1.5 million years, they tended to be raised by masterful men. In tribal times, every young boy went through a masculine initiation. They were taken out and put into frightening, challenging, even life-threatening situations. We saw the movie 300. There's a scene where a young boy goes out and has to spend a night in a cave, which is a spear, and fight off wild animals. A common initiation, I'm told, is a young boy be taken and strapped down to an anthill of red ants. And then he endures being bitten all night. Then in the morning, the men take him to the river and bathe him and wash him and heal his wounds and hand him over to the young women. He now gets to be a man and have sexual access. No matter what the tradition is, most initiation involves getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And my experience working with men nowadays, 21st century, is most men are not particularly comfortable being uncomfortable. We like to hang out in the nursery. We drink, we smoke dope, we eat junk food, we watch too much television, we surf the internet, we jack off to porn because we haven't been initiated into the scary world of the masculine. And that's one thing really I hope to do with Integration Nation, is provide both tribe and this masculine initiation for men. Now, transmission of masculinity is generational for good and for bad. Everyone, we had wounded fathers. Our fathers had wounded fathers. They passed their wounds on to us. But that's not all they passed on to us. They also passed on positive traits as well. And sometimes we nice guys have a hard time believing that or seeing it. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But masculinity is always passed on. The good parts of masculinity get passed on, and the bad parts. So it seems like that's all we hear nowadays is the bad parts, the toxic masculinity, the patriarchy. But patriarchy, actually, part of its origins was to provide and protect for women and children. That's not a bad thing. But all we hear are the negatives nowadays. And you may have heard me say that I like the Buddhist concept that say, in terms of dealing with karma, we're healing 7 generations in the past and 7 generations to the future. So the work that we do as integrated men, as evolving men, good men doing better, we're healing all those wounds, all those father wounds of 7 generations back. And we're also passing on a different karma, a different energy to the next 7 generations. So that means if masculinity is transmitted from men to men, we have to be around men to be the best versions of ourselves, to get the best parts of masculinity transmitted onto us. You guys, you've been around me. I'm a big believer of men's groups and programs. Look, at 67 years old, I launched a men's program, right? I could be retiring, but I just know that men around the world need this. And I'm so grateful that everywhere I look, I'm seeing men's groups, men's programs. When I started my recovery 30 years ago, there were a few guys out in the woods with talking sticks, beating on drums, saying hope. And that was great. That was good. But I'm glad we have so much more now. But we need men, whether it's spending time in a men's group or just spending time doing guy things with other guys. We need a safe place where we can express ourselves and learn from each other. We can learn from other men's experiences. And any of you that have ever been in a group, maybe you've already experienced so far just on the timeline or on a tribe call in a breakout room. But I know as I led groups for years, at one time in private practice, I was leading 5 groups a week. I do workshops. I got a couple virtual workshops coming up. I got workshops in Vallarta. Somebody posted on the forum today, Carlton, that he's coming down to Vallarta. The thing that makes these groups so powerful is not that anything I teach or share, maybe it's helpful, but what makes them powerful is when men realize we're not unique and we're not alone. Hey, I'm Dr. Robert Glover. In case we haven't previously crossed paths, I'm the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy and the founder of Integration Nation, a worldwide community for men. I hope you're enjoying this clip from a recent live Integration Nation call. If so, I encourage you to check out the Integration Nation YouTube channel, where you'll find tons of videos, including lessons I teach and interviews I do on these weekly calls. I also publish YouTube Shorts, all raw and uncensored. After you've poked around our YouTube channel, go check out Integration Nation at integrationnation.net. With that, I'm in. Back to the video. We get to be another group of men and be vulnerable and reveal ourselves and all the things we've struggled with, our toxic shame, our insecurities, our imposter syndrome, our addictions, our hidden behaviors. We find out we're not unique and we're not alone. That's why we need other men. That's why we need a tribe. Okay, key point number 2 of our lesson. Our fathers were destined to let us down. I think pretty much every nice guy I've ever talked to has had a complaint about his father. Sometimes many complaints. I've had my share of complaints about my father. Robert Bly in Iron John makes a point of saying that none of our fathers were as good as we might imagine them to be or as bad as we might imagine them to be. And he says we have to either take them off the pedestal or out of the gutter and just see them as men, wounded men, struggling, working against the odds, without the tools and resources they needed. And he said, because until we can do that with our fathers, we're going to judge all other men and ourselves by that same unrealistic standard that we judge our fathers. Now, I know some of you right now as I talk are resisting. I get it. I know, because I've talked to some of you. And even like the practice we have of saying, I'm Robert, the son of my father's name. Some of you said, I'm not going to do that. Okay. I'm not going to tell anybody what they have to do. Have your boundaries. But I also know that until we deal with our father wounds, and I've been thinking that maybe when I finish this series of lessons, maybe that's what we dive into. It's a series of lessons on the father wound, not just lessons, but a series of perhaps healing practices around the father wound. So just trying to be the opposite of our fathers and the opposite of other men doesn't solve anything. As I often am quoted as saying, I actually Googled one time, who said the opposite of crazy is still crazy? And guess what? Dr. Robert Glover said that. I think somebody said it before me, but trying to be the opposite of something we consider to be toxic, that's not any better, right? That's not doing anything better. And so trying to be opposite of our fathers tends to just make matters worse. Whatever our dark masculine energy is, whatever our own masculine wounding is, it's just going to go underground. It's going to get repressed down into our unconscious, and it's still going to seep out. And that's the reason why nice guys often aren't so nice, is we think, I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. I'm different from my dad. I'm different than other men. While our passive aggressiveness seeks out, our objectification of women's body parts, our hidden secretive behaviors seek out, our rage, our resentment, our covert contracts, all of that just comes seeping out because we think we're so much better than our father and other men. Now, of course, we were different from our fathers, but cutting ourselves off from our fathers cuts us off from our own masculinity and from other men. And so, again, I understand that resistance of some men don't want to say they're the son of, but really what I'm wanting us to do is to just connect with our history of masculine transmission, not just our dad's dad, their dads. You know, when I've done father work with men in groups, and I start talking with men about what they knew about their father's childhood and about their grandfathers, and almost every guy said, you know, my father was like an orphan, or his dad was killed in the war, or he grew up in poverty, or his father was physically abusive, or beat his mother, or he had to go to work at 7. And I'm thinking, no wonder these guys are wounded, right? Doesn't make them bad men. It just makes them wounded. So our fathers were imperfect, and that's okay. And to add to that, no one man could have initiated us into adult masculinity. It really does take a tribe. Yeah, I was talking with a guy just yesterday, and he said, you know, my dad didn't teach me how to pick up women. And then we both laughed at that. And he goes, but I guess if he had, it probably would have meant he was a womanizer, and I probably would have thought he was a total ass. And we laughed about that. You know, guys, well, my dad didn't teach me how to manage money or how to work on cars or how to do this or how to do that. You know, our dads could only teach us what they knew. They were far from perfect. But the bottom line is that, as I said, our ancestors were raised by a tribe of men, not just one man, not by one perfect man who wasn't raised by a tribe himself. So our fathers could not have taught us all that we needed to know. So perhaps somewhere in there's a little bit of grace we might offer our father. Now, in fact, let me just briefly talk just a little bit about a gratitude practice. I didn't talk to my father for 15 years. I didn't talk to either of my parents for 15 years. And I was going through, you know, my own work, my own recovery, setting boundaries. I was dealing with my own resentments. And in the springtime one year, I was reading, you know, about time for baseball season to start. I'm a baseball fan, and reading a bunch of articles about baseball. I just sent my dad a short note and said, Dad, thank you for teaching me to play ball, for taking me, for coming to my practices, for pitching to me, for hitting me flies, for taking me to ball games. I'm grateful for that. And just that little gratitude over time, it actually took several months and then a few years, I began to reconnect with my father and see him for just the wounded man that he was, and how he just had a lot of inadequacies. And when he died of a stroke in 2009, I was really at peace. I could kiss him on the cheek every day while I went to the hospital, went to hospice, and just say, Dad, I love you. Thank you. And I still have a picture of him on my stairway, just a little snapshot. I look at it every time I walk up the stairs to my bedroom. And I'm grateful for what he gave me. And he was far, far, far from perfect. All right. Key point number 3. This is fun. The masculine is the source of love. I think one person on this call who was hosting for us tonight before his internet went bad, I think he's the first person I ever made this comment to on a call. And I said, you know what? It kind of scares me to say it because our mythology is women are love. Women are the source of love. Mothers are love. Everything is, the feminine is love. But you know what? The model I've been working on for years, kind of built on David Data's work and my own work, is that the feminine is the seeker of love. It's the seeker of connection and the flow of love. And if something is the seeker of love, how can it be the source of love? And the more I dug into this, I took a look at Scott Peck's definition of love, and it involves intention and action to act in one's own or another person's best interest. Now, intention and action are masculine traits. It's the doing. The feminine is done too. So if you're like me, you've probably spent most of your life looking for love in all the wrong places. I mean, looking for it, just what I call feminine junk food distraction. Somebody, I think, asked about that on the forum today. Just junk food in general, television, porn, the internet, pot, alcohol, just anything that fills us but leaves us wanting more. Well, if it's not in junk food feminine, we go looking for love from the feminine. But the feminine is the seeker of love. And as I've often said, the feminine in us and in women is a big empty bucket with a hole in the bottom that seeks to be filled from the outside, seeking to be filled by the masculine. So that's one of the reasons probably many of us have struggled in life is we keep going to women thinking that they're going to love us in the way we want to be loved, or hoping we'll find a woman that loves us in the way we want to be loved, while we're disconnected from men. And I've found out, and it's taken me years to find it out, that when I want to feel loved, I got to turn to my own masculine self and nurture my own feminine, fill my own bucket, and I've got to hang out with men. I got to spend time with men. Gentlemen, I got the best job in the world because it involves me spending time with men day in and day out, good men. I look forward to these calls. They don't feel like work to me. When I get off them, I'm energized. I'm full because I get to be with men and feel the love of men. So we need a tribe of good men to feel loved, to help us get our needs met. No woman can do this for us. A woman that's operating in her feminine is going to be seeking love and seeking us to fill her, not fill us. And then one last piece of this. Most of you know, I've been a marriage and family therapist most of my life. One thing I used to tell couples when they walked in my office, I'd say the best thing you guys can do for your marriage is for each of you to have good same-sex friends. And I've been teaching men for quite some time that if you want a healthy relationship, it has to be built on the foundation of good guy friends. All this stuff. Oh, my girlfriend's my best friend. My wife's my best friend. We're soulmates. Bullshit. Who do you turn to when your best friend thinks you're a worthless piece of shit and a jerk and an asshole? Who do you go? Oh, no. You need to have guy friends that you can go to. Oh, man, my wife thinks I'm a worthless piece of shit. And your guy friends will say, you're not. She's just going through a mood. She'll get over it. Right? We need guy friends to help us build that healthy foundation so we don't put all the demands on a woman. All right. To wrap this up, we need a body of good men to help us be our best selves. We need men to feel loved. We need men to support us and hold us accountable. We need men to have our best relationship with women. And our path to being the best version of ourselves and living our best lives will always take us through a deep connection with men.